Welcome to Flash Fiction from Giant's Reach by Steve Cook. So it's come around time for my class of children to do another one of their independent writing pieces, and as inspiration for this one they've been using the real mystery of the lighthouse of the Flannan Isles, which is as is my habit, I sat down next to them, and to encourage them to write, I sat down and did a bit of independent writing. So here is my Giant's Reach take on the mystery of the Flannan Isles lighthouse. Part 1, I hope you enjoy. The Lighthouse, Part 1. Liam hauled himself over the side of the dock, pulling the rope between his teeth. His claws scrabbled at the rotting wood of the pier, pulling great flakes of it away, but the otter gained enough footing to be able to pull the little boat in behind him. As soon as it touched the side, the boat's occupants jumped onto land. Bethany, her oilskin wrapped tightly against the freezing sea spray, and Moore, his knitted cap defiantly rammed onto his woolly mop of hair. "God above!" Moore shouted over the waves crashing against the rocks. "It's the dragon's own weather out here." Liam finished tying the boat to the pier and looked up at the lighthouse far above them. "We're going to have a real problem getting up there," he said, voice echoing strangely out of the jewel embedded at his breast. "Well, you are." "Fancy giving us a ride?" Bethany snorted as the otter simply turned away and began walking. "Yeah, thought not." The trio began to climb the slick, winding path that ran around the island. There was no railing, and in places there had been mudslides. More than once, Liam was forced to eat his words as he lifted Moore and Bethany across the most dangerous sections. His fur was like one smooth carapace, sodden, and rainwater dripped constantly from his whiskers. "I don't like it," Bethany said in a break in the weather. They had moved around to the lee of the island, the wind biting less briskly, and even the rain had slackened. "They should have been down there waiting for us. They surely saw us coming." Moore said. He took his cap off and swept a hand through his white hair. "The lighthouse hasn't been lit for days now, and no sign of the men at the dock, and no sign of life. I can't say I'm holding out much hope." "What could have incapacitated all three men?" Liam said. "Or even killed them? Pirates?" "Pirates rely on this place as much as any," Moore replied. "They'll founder on the rocks just like any other. No, this is weirder." As they rounded the final turn in the path, the lighthouse once again reared up before them. It was tall, made of white stone, and the glass and metal construction at its summit was well maintained. The rain had almost stopped now, a feeble sun poking through the bruised grey clouds, and the contrast made the lighthouse seem almost otherworldly against the backdrop of the roiling seas. All three slowed as they came up the gravelled path that led directly into the lighthouse, and Moore held a hand out to slow them further. "Door's open," he muttered. "Gate's shut, though." The wooden slatted gate was indeed shut and bolted, but through it the sun-scorched door to the lighthouse proper was halfway open, revealing an uninviting darkness inside. Liam picked up his pace and reached the gate first, flicking it open with one paw. "Marshall," he called. "MacArthur, Ducat, you there?" No answer came to the uplift's calls, and after a moment he pushed the gate open. Its hinges squealed in protest. "I don't like it," Bethany began, but Moore cut her off. "No one likes it, Beth. Let's get in there and get this over with." He visibly drew himself up, marched forward, and, hesitating for only a moment, pushed the door open. "Anyone home?" No reply came, and Liam and Bethany, pressed close enough to Moore to almost push him inside. He looked back sourly. Anyone would think you two were scared. Just want to get home, Moore, quick as I can, Bethany said, but her voice lacked its normal lustre. He nodded, not meeting her gaze, and peered into the hallway. The stone floor had a thin layer of dust. On the left, a doorway opened to a common area that should have been occupied by at least one of the men at any one time. A set of steps led up on the right, curling around the inside of the entire structure. What held their gaze, though, what made Moore's breath come a little quicker, was the dark, man-sized shape leaning against the end wall. "Is that someone down there?" Bethany whispered, leaning around Moore. "Stood against the wall." The shape moved a little, as though they had waved a hand around at waist height. "Hey, you," Moore said gruffly. "Turn around." The figure didn't move, and he stepped over the threshold. "I said, turn around." He crept down the hallway, hand straying to the small survival pack at his belt. The knife in there was a little thing for sawing through caught ropes and quick bandages, but it would do in a pinch. Except... He reached out and touched the shape, fingers brushing against the heavy fabric of an oilskin. The overcoat was hung, he now saw, on a hook, one of 3. The other 2 were empty. Completing the illusion was the pair of heavy boots stood beneath it, ready for an owner who had never come. Just a coat," he called back, trying to keep the waver out of his voice. "Darn it, Liam, aren't you supposed to have night sight?" The otter bristled. "I can see just fine, but even you have to admit that looks like a person, Moore." The old sailor beckoned Bethany in. "Liam, check the perimeter. You don't fit in here anyway. See if they're on the other side of the island." Liam sniffed. "Not very inclusive," he muttered. "Built by humans for humans." "Built long before you or I were born, so get on with your job," Moore growled. He waited until the otter had gone, then turned to the search. You've been listening to flash fiction written for my Patreon, Giant's Reach. If you'd like to become a supporter, go to patreon.com/Giant's Reach, where you can find more fiction just like this,